Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping on by, for pausing and centering yourselves once again in God's Word. Tonight we continue our devotional series on the idea of God's mercy. Tonight focusing especially on this idea and word, faithfulness. Faithfulness is a big term, a big idea, just sometimes generic enough to cause some problems. But I think about it in this way. Faithfulness is all about God keeping God's promises in good times, bad times, uncertain times, and everywhere in between. I've got some visual things for you to think about and maybe understand in that way tonight. I'm wearing my White Sox sweatshirt because it's cold. Also because I'm recording this early and it's a playoff game today. Those of you who know the sports world know that being a faithful fan requires you to stick by your team in good times and bad times. I know this, I think, especially well as a White Sox fan. Those of you who are Viking and Twins fans know it especially well too. It can really be a challenge. And somehow your fanhood rises above and you stick with it. It makes the good times even that much better. I also want to think about uncertain times, anxious times. We could talk about pandemic times too, but you'll note that I'm standing in what was or is my office. I've been working from the youth room across the hall for the past month because we had some rains inside the building not too long ago. We had to readjust and relocate pretty quickly with some water coming in the building. And like maybe lots of you right now with school and jobs and other things going on, we're not quite sure what comes next. And I remember that in these uncertain times, we are to put our trust in God. That God will provide and that God keeps God's promises. That story is told over and over throughout the Bible. To those who are wandering in the wilderness, those in exile, even on through the New Testament, those who are marginalized, who have their backs up against the wall. God keeps God's promises. It's a move from fear to hope, the hope of restoration, of resurrection, all of these things. As we think about the word faithful, I invite you to take a listen to these words from Luke chapter 17 today. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going between the region between Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered the village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean, but the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to them, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." This illustration may be one that we all know of before. The story of the 10 lepers is another in just a long line of examples of God keeping God's promises. Jesus' mission, Jesus' love was for all people. Healing literally these 10. But perhaps this story is also an illustration of the awareness that we have about God's action in our lives. Only one returned to give thanks to God. I don't know why that is. Maybe only one noticed. Maybe only one grew up writing thank you cards and learned from his parents that was what you were supposed to do. I don't know. But I know this, that amidst all the things that happen in our world, in our lives, highs and lows, good times, bad times, worrisome times, anxious times, fearful times, insert whatever descriptor you need here, times. Faithfulness, the faithfulness of God remains the same today, tomorrow, and it will be the same on and on and on and on. That is the good news, friends. God keeps God's promises. Things will be better. The end is not really the end. So I invite you to think a little bit tonight. I'm not going to end with a prayer so much as an invitation, something that we do often with our young people in our confirmands. We talk about highs and lows. I want you to think about maybe this week, this year, or just go back and search your memory for a good time and a bad time in your life. See if you recognized in those times God at work somehow. Maybe at work through friends or family. Maybe something that happened to you here at church or out in the world. I don't know. Think about it. And then think about this. Did you thank God for that? Do those things. And remember that God's faithfulness is so big, one that invites us to a future that we can hardly believe. When we fully understand that, perhaps we can turn back and say thank you.